tabs on the labs, who's got their license, who's not testing. It's one of those things where it's like the consumers really don't care at the end of the day, but they should. At least people in the industry and distributors and brands should at least care and see where their products are going and, you know, getting the best quality, because I do think that having a good testing lab behind your product is going to help in the long run.
Hi Kevin, how are you?
Not too bad. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for letting us get insight on how important these labs are for the dispensaries.
I think it's good that people like you visit the labs. The labs get kind of left out and they're not as fun or interesting, but they're a huge part of the supply chain.
Tell us a little bit more about that, because we don't know everything that goes into how we get such great product at the end of the day and in our stores, and make it so convenient and easy for us to go grab some recreational products. So why don't you tell us what your process is?
Yeah, so as a testing lab, we're in the supply chain, and before everything can get released into retail stores, the distributor needs to send them out for testing, which involves a driver going there, randomly sampling each sample, whether it's an infused product, flower. We go through a whole process for chain of command, you know, like they have to be there observing, there's video cameras there. You know, we're writing the batch number, we're on a whiteboard and we're showing the video camera. It's a pretty stringent process. Drive back, once we get here, we change hands, we log it in metric, and then the fun starts is in terms of testing. And it goes through a rigorous process of potency, obviously, pesticides, microbials, heavy metals, water activity, moisture testing. It's a pretty big panel. A lot of analytes are getting tested, a lot of different instruments, and it's, in terms of turnaround time, it takes anywhere from a day to 2 days, depending on how backed up you are, to 3 days. And if that sample passes, we put it in the system and it's free to be dispersed into retailers throughout the state. If it fails, then that distributor or whoever's holding on to it needs to destroy the product.
Wow, and I'm sure they would not want that to happen.
Yeah, so there's different ways to try to address that. The biggest thing is R&Ding it, which is testing before the compliance phase. Throughout the process, you know, maybe some pesticides that you're using, you can flush them out, addressing any microbial issues, metal issues in the soil. That's why I really, really highly recommend to our customers that, and just anyone in general, to R&D it before you send it out for compliance testing, because you can remediate it. It's just a little bit of a process, and that's kind of been the downfall for some companies, is they've just had to destroy batches, and some of these batches are anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000 in value.
So when a dispensary gets licensed, are they aware that they need to really partner up with a lab that, because
they don't need to partner up unless they're maybe integrated and have a distro. Some of these distribution centers are also integrated with dispensaries, so maybe they might know they have to get testing, so their compliance person, if their sample's not tested already, then it needs to get tested. So I'd say most retailers and the people working don't really understand the complexities of the testing other than the THC content.
yeah, that seems to be a big one. That's
Yeah.
really what it comes down to for some people. How potent is it?
Yeah, but you're into this situation right now with the state where it's like, you know, you have a lot of labs, you have a lot of lab shopping. Some labs give higher numbers to retain business, and that's kind of, I guess.
Wow, really?
Yeah, that's kind of a big issue the state's kind of dealing with, as well as like other labs. You know, you get just, you got only so many labs, you got so many businesses that where their potency and THC numbers reflect on cutting a deal, so that's just the way the things have played out.
Wow, interesting. And so you mainly focus on what type of product?
We do everything under the sun, basically. Edibles is the most challenging to do, and We have a very extensive list, from just your normal chocolate cookies to lollipops, hard candies, beverages, nano products, like you name it, we can do it, and we can do it quickly. We don't have to toy around with the sample prep, because that's the hardest thing with these things. Because by the time they get in the machine, you've broken it down to its chemical compound, but it's just getting it to a proper prep where you can actually test it without, getting negative results or false results, especially when it comes to like the milligrams per serving and the labels and trying to make that match. There's definitely some difficulties and challenges with maybe heavier, thicker products such as agave syrups and so forth.
Yeah, I don't want to give your age away, but this is actually the youngest owner of a lab in California. So what led you to really get into this?
I don't even remember anymore. It's just, things were getting legalized. I kind of grew up here in Orange County. I left for college in Seattle, came back down. When I was in Seattle, Washington had been legalized in 2014, and it was just crazy, and I saw it just kind of starting to take off a little bit there, and it always stuck with me. And then California being its own economy, basically, I was more experienced in terms of business and knowledge that I just wanted to get into it when it was getting legalized and all this stuff was starting to pass, and testing labs were more up my alley in terms of the technical, the health benefits, the reason for it, because no matter what you do or whatever changes, one thing that's always going to be here with this industry is testing. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. If anything, it's going to be more important now with AB 45 and the hemp and CBD bills passing, which was very needed in my opinion. So I just thought it was a good decision to go into from different supply chains.
Okay, and so if someone wants to work with you, they could just basically reach out to you, go to your website, I'm assuming?
Yeah, they usually, giving us a call, website, Instagram, you name it. This industry is, we can get turnaround times pretty quickly. Depending on the customer, where they're located, we can service all of California. Really, we just like to R&D stuff before we do compliance, before we bring on new customers and really work with them through the process. It's just beneficial for us, it's beneficial for them. We look at it more than just a testing lab. Like, we work with you and we try to help you and bring as much value to you as you can, making connections, trying to do some media stuff, just collaborating, and just making sure like they understand their COAs. So by understanding their COAs, they might pass on certain things, but there might be certain hits of the pesticides below LOD, below LOQs, but it's still a hit. So you want to work with them and find out why it happened, what they can do later on to fix this and make sure it doesn't. Because once you start playing around with those numbers, in terms of seeing those hits, like if you don't address it, sometimes it can get worse and then cause a fail. So we've seen that happen where they don't take it that seriously, and then later down the line, maybe an insecticide problem got out of control and they were using more of a certain pesticide and it failed a batch.
Okay, so if a grower is having complications, and a lot of them may not be, as experienced, they're not really sure what's going on with their harvest, or they really would need someone like you to guide them.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get their product tested no matter what before it hits the shelves. It's just what part of the process do they want to rely on a lab? Early on is better, and also trying to stay with the lab or going to other labs and seeing what results are you're getting and trying to differentiate is a big part of the industry. So especially when it comes to the THC side of things, they'll always go with whoever's higher. Unfortunately, but I do still recommend going to other labs, and everyone should have 2 or 3 labs that they work with.
Okay, so what's your customer base like now? How many people or how many companies are you currently?
We just work with a few distributors that handle a fair amount of volume, or a lot of CBD companies, a lot more edible focused and infused based companies have kind of slowly started making that transition over, especially from the beverages side. we've just kind of taken off a little bit with that in terms of where our customers are. We can do obviously flower, we can do the oils, but the hardest thing to test is these edible products, which we've been fortunate to spend a lot of time on and develop, and had a lot of success getting tested in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, and I know you guys were mentioning maybe doing some more outreach with the local dispensaries just to provide education to the public and to let them know that the actual process of these products that we're inhaling or consuming. So it's definitely a health issue and definitely something that obviously this is part of the state regulations. You guys definitely are going to be needed and have to be here because it's just part of consumer, right? And just keeping the public aware and educating people on the safety.
Yeah, the safety is like the biggest thing, and it's used in politics a lot about the safety of cannabis. Obviously, It's been there for years and years, and it's not going away. But I've had success in showcasing to maybe other cities that want to get on board. They'll go see the dispensaries, they'll go see the retailers, but when they see the testing lab, they don't understand how much goes into keeping a clean product, and it changes a lot of people's opinions of it. So when you have, your recreational retail stores that are state licensed versus, the backyard or backdoor shop, there's a huge difference. You can have the same strain, the same brands, but one of them's probably a lot cleaner than the other. And I think educating people on that will help drive people to switch to more of the retail side in terms of the legalization.
Yeah.
And I think cities and governments are like, it's not going away anytime soon in terms of their legal shops. They're always going to be there, but this way they can protect the public, as well as educating themselves. They can make a better case for why it should be legalized. That's been I've had some success with a few other surrounding city members that just wanted to see a lab, and even I had a congressman here who's a proponent for cannabis and banking and so forth in the area.
Can you tell us who?
Lou Carrera.
Okay.
So he came in and he saw it. He was like, I didn't know how much went into the testing and how in depth it was, and it was kind of a good experience for him. And I kind of took that and approached other people in terms of the politics, in terms of Orange County, and they've come and seen the space, and it's a good space. They've really enjoyed it. Everyone seems to have this negative connotations with cannabis and all the things surrounding it, but it's pretty regulatory. It's pretty well regulated in terms of everyone's got their stuff together. It's not easy to get these licenses, so most of these operators kind of went through hell to get these places up and running.
Yeah, and that's why legalization is needed, so we can be safe about it, and there will be regulations, and we don't want any of this backdoor weed coming or being on the market. I'm even hearing that there are packaging companies overseas that are doing branding for brands and then selling them off market to other growers and allowing them to use.
Yeah, that's a common one. So we work with quite a few brands on this, where what they'll do is they'll attach a COA to their product. But what they do is they put you grab a quarter, you scratch it off, there's a QR code, and that QR code actually links you to our COAs.
Scratch would be cool though.
Yeah, I scratch it, but it's just a scratch. So you grab the container, so you scratch it off, you QR code it, it goes straight to the COAs. So that's been ways like certain brands have been able to combat this.
That's good. Yeah.
It's a very smart idea, but yeah, like a lot of these companies in China, a lot of the products and hardware comes from there, but there's other companies that can go and bake a product and sell it, and
it's happening in all the industries. And
California's gotten better at catching it, but other states, it's from what I've been told, it's still quite a big of an issue, and they don't have testing and they don't have the wherewithal to address this. So that's one of the other things that's occurring, and just also testing for the hardware in this products like the tinctures, the vapes. That's also a crucial aspect in terms of, I don't know if you saw, but there was a study recently where they tested a specific brand, and it was a disposable cart, and I don't remember quite how many samples they used, but basically they took it, they found no metals, then they mimicked some 50 puffs and generated heat in it, and then they tested it and they found that there was lead, magnesium, nickel, and copper, and maybe some mercury.
Wow.
So even though it gets tested, when you use certain products, you need to be careful because, certain ones will bleed lead, like tinctures. I've seen tinctures bleed lead into products when they're on the shelf because
Wow.
of the quality. Some of the vapes need to be a little bit more, they need to go through some more product testing where it's like, okay, we've tested this and used this 50, 75, 25 times. How much of the product is leaking into it due to the large amounts of heat.
Wow. Okay. So when we're shopping, what should we look for? I know you mentioned the COA. That's printed right on the package.
It should be. Some brands do, some brands don't. It should be available in some form. Some brands just have their QR codes, some of them don't. But you can always go online and find it.
Okay. Because I don't do that. I just take things for granted if they're at a well-known dispensary that I know is definitely a legal shop. That's the only place I would go get my marijuana right now. But I never even thought to look for any sort of like testing verification. But I do have my trusted brands, my go-to brands. So.
What brands do you rely on mostly?
I mean, I am into gummies. That's really kind of the main form, and I use Canna,
Okay.
K-N-H-A.
Gotcha.
They're a company from up north. So I know, or I can assume because they're a really great brand. I think they've won multiple awards as well. So, but that's my main form of ingesting marijuana is really the gummies. I like the edibles. I do like the tinctures too, though.
Yeah, there are labs that have gotten licenses suspended and gotten them back again. The only thing I would advocate is like if there's things should be more transparent to the public. Like we hear about it in the industry, but the public and other distributors should know what and why they got their license suspended and reinstated. Just because like chances are that person's probably going to do that, or that lab is probably going to do that again. Like you gotta, from what I know, and this is just other labs can just say, hey, we know how to cheat the system now. It's not going to change anything. You have bad actors. Not everyone wants to clean it up that much. So just keep tabs on the labs, who's got their license, who's not testing. It's one of those things where it's like the consumers really don't care at the end of the day, but they should. At least people in the industry and distributors and brands should at least care and see where their products are going and getting the best quality, because I do think that having a good testing lab behind your product is going to help in the long run. It's still the wild west of things, and we got 40 labs. Certain labs are gonna always bend the rules. You're always gonna have bad actors, so it's just addressing those and making sure the state's on top of it.
I'm learning more and more about cannabis. I'm obviously an advocate for marijuana, and I don't really even think twice when I'm going into these licensed dispensaries and purchasing product, but now I will think twice, and I will make sure that they are on the up and up.
Yeah, well, the state is allocating some large amount of funding and creating a reference lab. So they will be testing stuff off the shelves and doing things like that to kind of start policing things a little bit better. They want to get it right. Their primary concern is health and safety. Potency is an issue, but at the end of the day, it's not really affecting people's health and safety. The thing that they're going to care about is pesticides and solvents is the two big ones, as well as microbials.
What's the max potency you would?
I mean,
I heard it was 70%.
Well, for what type of product?
Flour.
Flour. I mean, anything above 35 is pretty suspect. Not saying it's impossible, but I've seen one from a lab up north that was 41%. That just, you could tell, like even as full as THC was 41%, total cannabinoids was like 47%, which
Wow.
was a little, you know, like it's a licensed lab, like that should not happen, but it
So
happens.
there's actually labs that will like fudge the numbers.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue that is happening. So you just gotta hope to get caught, and that's not really the way to do it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, cannabis, we're just walking such a thin line right now. It's barely become legal. You know, not every state has accepted it yet. So there's definitely some strict regulations. And I think if we keep on the right path, you know, keep educating the public about the benefits and that there are safety methods in place and people can feel more comfortable about it. Different generations, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Some people have a way of old school thinking that they haven't really fully accepted the benefits of marijuana and how it can actually heal your body. But I feel like if the state is actually implementing these tests, I think that's definitely a right step and good thing for public.
That's why I want to focus more on like consumer advocacy. We work with like the OC Normal Group. We're on part of the Chamber of Commerce. Just trying to be in a position where we can not educate only just our brands that we work with, but consumers, and let them know like a little bit about the testing. We don't have to go as in depth, but you know, let them know like why it's done, why you should go to a reputable retail store as opposed to you know,
Yes.
buying it off some backdoor shop.
Yeah.
There's plenty of those around, but it's just, again, health and safety, especially in Orange County. I think the older population, and talking to a lot of the retailers around here, like they do attract a lot of older population going for the tinctures, the gummies, the bombs. Not everyone's going for the flower, but there's like a huge market here that I know people from Newport, Costa Mesa, Irvine, like everyone seems to come to Santa Ana, and you see such a diverse group of people all purchasing cannabis. It's not just the young kids anymore doing it.
Yeah.
It's really everyone. There's always
Right.
something for everyone. There's so many products from dogs, dog treats, dog tinctures. There's
Yes, I have CBD for my dog, and I even read it helps with fleas.
that I don't know.
I actually Googled it and I put it on her skin. But I know it helps for, you know, any skin ailments, so I hope it helped her.
Yeah, I mean, I know for my dog, she just gets very thirsty when she takes it.
Really?
Yeah, she goes right to the water bowl. Yeah, it's definitely helped her with some of her arthritis. She's getting up there. Yeah, for me, I pretty much use tinctures a lot just for sleeping. They have some great CBN and THC mixes that you just put a couple drops
yes.
in, and you know, it helps with certain sleep.
Yeah, that's
issues
my
you have.
favorite is THC with CBD. That's like perfect for me.
Yeah, so I found a good mixture. You know, again, there's still more coming now that hemp and CBD are going to be tested with the same regulations as cannabis. It's going to be very interesting because a lot of the brands and CBD and hemp-based companies we've tested typically fail at a higher rate than cannabis, and it's not even like close. So you're going to be seeing a lot of things in the future of like, I think brands you know, adjusting to the new AB 45 bill. It is signed. There's still some things that are getting ironed out from a logistical standpoint, but basically hemp and CBD will need to get tested with the same exact process as cannabis. And hemp can typically be dirtier than cannabis because one, hemp is used as an absorbent, and it's very good at absorbing, you know, metals in the soil, contaminants, and so forth. And then when you break that down and you process it, they don't go anywhere. So trying to get rid of it's difficult. You know, a lot of these CBD companies use very cheap hardware from outsourced places, which have a lot of lead, metals.
Wow, that's so, you know, interesting to think about. That can happen in your everyday life, even if you are cooking with something and the transfer of the LED.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, the biggest thing is, again, a lot of people that rely on CBD are, you know, health compromised or immune compromised, and when you're putting all these contaminants in those products, that you can get at Walgreens or Target and so forth, they're the ones that are really at risk. Like yeah, it might affect me down the road and you don't want it, but I'll be okay in the short term. But some people, they really can't take those risks.
Yeah.
So for example, if you're immune compromised and you're smoking a product and there's like metals in it, that metals is 20 times more toxic. It's not as toxic as ingesting something with metals, because if you ingest something with metals, it's 20 times more toxic than smoking it. There was a study on that, which I can send you. So there's data out there on the effects and the contaminants and what they do on your body. They're still working on it. UCI down the street does a good job. They have a good study program. UCSB, I believe, does as well. And it's great to see these studies and these findings. And you just gotta hope they do more of it. And I think that's what's gonna kind of affect the testing in the future. Is these studies are gonna showcase these issues and how we address it on the testing side. So I am kind of anticipating maybe someday they do expand the list of testing because of it. But for now, I think California has the longest panel in the country because, we're such a big state. Agriculture here has been through the ringer since the early 1900s with wine and, different crops throughout time, especially up north. So, we by far have the strictest panel. And I think California labs are probably the strongest in the country as well in terms of being able to test for everything, so many different analytes, and being ahead of the game. And the state's pretty strict when you have to get validated. As far as new licenses, they've been very strict on, just because they licensed a lot of labs, I think, early on, and they didn't quite know what they were doing, but they needed them to get the market going, and they're trying to fix it and play it out a certain way.
They have a lot of great supportive organizations. So you said you were part of the Chamber of Commerce.
LBCA.
Yeah, that's amazing. Their name just comes up in every conversation. They really pave the way for so many people. Yeah,
they do a lot of good work. We're kind of working off their hard work and labor they've done over quite a few years. Great group of people. They really, really care about Long Beach. And I kind of want to do the same thing here and really build that grassroots system that they've had, and hope to be maybe just even a quarter of what LBCA is. I'd be pretty happy. Yeah, if anyone ever wants to just get a batch, or they buy some weed and they want to get it tested just to see their potency, if it's real, just bring it on in. I'm just always curious to see what's out there too. People say hey, I have retailers actually bought some flour recently. It was 33% and it didn't look the greatest. We tested it 3-4 times and it was still 22-23%. He's just yeah, I didn't think it was that high. But so I think some of the retailers are starting to catch on a little bit, which is good, because some of the consumers in California are pretty educated, and educated ones can look at flour. It's maybe a little bit harder with the oil, but with flour you can always tell. You can tell by smell, the look, just the way it smokes. People find out.
Wow.
So we're working with some retailers in the area. We're working with a few, even consumers. They were just hey, can you just test this? And I was sure, no problem. And it's just interesting for us to collect that data.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting, and I get excited when I see new products on the shelf. I really want to try more drinks and stuff like that. I'm not much of an alcohol drinker, so I really like the weed drinks. But yeah, there's so much that goes into this, and I didn't even realize. So thank you so much for keeping the public safe.
Yeah,
giving us a clean high, clean buzz. And it's all through this lab here. So if you want to know more about Kevin, please look him up on his Instagram. I'll put his handle somewhere here, and go give him a shout out and let him know you saw him on our show. So if you want to learn more about our organization, just go to our website, and I'll also put the website down below as well. And thank you so much for allowing us in your lab today. And
yeah, anytime.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Kevin.